Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. We're live. Hey, what's up, everyone? And welcome back to the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Austin Laroche, and Austin is the CEO of ATAK Interactive and the creator of M2S, the Marketing to Sales framework. Austin, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, Wes. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, man. We had a really we didn't know each other until a couple weeks ago, and had what I thought was a really interesting conversation. And so anyways, I've been real excited about having you come on the show ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of crossover and different life experiences.
Yeah, it's been interesting as we've kind of uncovered some of that. So, just as kind of a quick introduction, share a little bit with the audience, what does your firm ATAK Interactive do? And then I'm real excited to unpack a little bit more of this M2S framework that you've developed.
Great. So at our core, kind of our overarching mission is to help our customers utilize the latest technology to grow their business. That's what we want to do. And how that gets dispersed goes across all sorts of different service lines that are constantly evolving. So typically marketing technology optimization, whether it's HubSpot, Salesforce, those types of platforms we help a lot with. We do a lot on the lead generation side. We help people navigate just new technology, AI, integrating different systems with one another. We do, we started as a web development company. We still build websites. Okay. It's going to be really easy for you to build a website by hitting an AI button in the next 5 years. So I see a lot more of our development product continuing to be connecting systems. And so we work with all sorts of different types of companies. I would say one of the biggest use cases for us are what we consider like multi-level businesses. So companies that are working within M&A that need to bring in a new company and integrate all of their systems and processes with technology. As well as franchises as well. So yeah, that's kind of at our core. That's what we do. That's our mission. That's what we try and help our customers with.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. And I think something that there's a huge need for, right? I mean, especially as you said, as technology, it's every day, not even every week now that some update or, new technology is on the market that businesses can utilize. But like most business owners, if you're a small business owner, you don't have time to keep up with, what's the hottest new, CRM or, best way to do Facebook ads or, whatever it may be. So like, having someone like you that's staying on top of these things and then can actually, look at one of your clients and say, hey, from what I understand about your business, there's this new tool that I think if we implemented it, it could really, benefit you. And then it's the connecting it all together. Like my wife and I were talking about this morning because the franchise that we own right now got acquired, and this was several years ago, but the brand got acquired by this big conglomerate company that owns a bunch of different franchise brands in the home service space. And, so they're not new to acquiring companies. That's how they've gotten as big as they are. But it's a 2 to 3 year process before a brand that they acquire is like 100% integrated, with the company's called Neighborly is the parent company. So anyways, like one of the last things they did before, I guess Shelf Genie, our brand was fully integrated, was change our emails, right? So this whole migration of, email systems over new email addresses, and it it's been the biggest pain in my wife's ass for the last week, because not only did she have to figure it out for herself, but we have installers, we have salespeople, like everyone. And some of our installers are very talented at what they do, but like logging into an email account is very difficult for these guys. So like walking people through that was just a huge thorn in her side. It would have been nice if they had a little more support. So anyways, I think I clearly see the need. I'd love to hear a little bit more about like how you evolved from just a web development company to everything that you do now.
Well, it's interesting. So ATAK actually, they acquired my old content marketing company back in 2014. My start was actually in social media, which I now
Okay.
am as far away from as possible. But I started at the Chicago Tribune in 2008, and I was learning all about all of the new technology that was coming out. Twitter was just starting to really get big,
Mhm.
and we had a big presidential election with a local candidate, and so there was just it was a great time to like get a crash course learning on social media.
Yeah.
And I recognized that small businesses were going to need it. What I did not recognize was that small businesses were going to have a really hard time understanding its purpose,
Yeah.
and where it worked really well and where it didn't. And I found as I evolved in my career and started working more on the B2B side, technology and anything with social media, it definitely became like, oh my gosh, we've got to jump in. And I'm like, dude, you guys sell like commercial printing parts to like, like nobody wants to follow you on Instagram. I'll never forget
Right.
one time. Uh,
What value is that going to bring you from having Instagram followers?
Right. But it's like, I just read a story about a restaurant and they get all of their business through social media. It's like, yeah, because they've got great food and people want to look at it every day.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was
Yeah.
like,
You see it, you're trying to figure out what to do for dinner tonight. Now you know what you're doing. It's not going to be applicable that way to every business.
yeah, I mean, I'll never forget. It must have been like the 2015 range when it was a very short lived technology, but Meerkat came out. And I had a client like, whoa, what are we going to do on Meerkat at this next trade show? I'm like, okay, like I get that you want to be the cool marketing guy and the boring company and you know what Meerkat is, but like, no, none of your target audience is going to be there. So
Yeah, that's going to be lost on them.
what I would say ATAK's kind of evolution has been to kind of look at those early days of, hey, all right, you build a website. Now you got to get people to come to your website. Now you got to get people to convert on your website and being able to really help customers do that. And that still exists and is still great. Like I think search marketing is the most formulaic form of marketing. You're marketing to a need. When you have a company that does something that people want and it's clear what you do and what they want, it is awesome form of marketing if you got the right people doing it. Now if you've got something that's a little bit more blue ocean, people don't even realize they need what you have because it's so cool and it's so great, that's typically when you're going to go do more advertising to a demo, right? So then
Yeah.
you're a demographic,
Right.
and that's when you would do more social media advertising and try and get in the feeds of the right people, and so we help people navigate just the entire ecosystem because it's starting to get even more crowded now. AI is everybody's cool favorite buzzword. Like, oh, what are we doing with AI? Hey, what are
Yeah.
we doing? And
Powered by AI.
well, yeah. So, I mean, perfect example. Everyone gets all excited about ChatGPT. Oh my gosh. Do you know how many blogs we can write now in a month? Wow, this is great. So companies dive in. They go from having one content writer who's writing two or three really high pieces of quality. Now they're pumping out 10 things a month. It's all ChatGPT, nonsense. And then a year later, Google comes out with an update and whoa, what happened to all of our rankings? Well, we just got, and it's like, well, what you tried to do is you tried to cheat the Google system. And anytime you try,
Right.
I always joke, anything that starts as like gray hat SEO ends up being black hat and no, and like,
And Chat GPT's probably in Google's eyes a bit of a competitor, I would assume, right? Because Google's working on their own AI technology and stuff. So like they're certainly not gonna reward the companies that are trying to take these shortcuts, leveraging essentially a competitor of
This
theirs.
is the big conversation we're having right now, because I love Google. They always talk out of both sides of their mouth. They say one thing and then they do the other, which is I mean, they're a tech company. If we don't expect that by
Yeah.
now, we don't have expectations.
Yeah.
But we were talking about this. There's like, what happens if we were to start writing more blogs for customers on Gemini, right? Or what? And I think we'll have to test it internally for ourselves, because what they say is, hey, we don't want any AI generated, whatever. And listen, there's now so much technology that you can take a blog completely written on ChatGPT, put it through an AI filter to make it sound more human. Put that one in a different filter. There's all sorts of these workarounds, and I think anytime you try and do the workarounds, like, you almost spend like more time working on the
More
workaround.
time than if you just wrote the damn blog article.
Yeah, create quality content. I always thought about that on the coupon shows. They were like, wow, these women spend 80 hours a week finding all the best coupons. So they go to the grocery store and they pay them $200 for groceries. I'm like, what's 80 hours?
Yeah, you made $200 for 80 hours of work. That's I guess you get your groceries too, but yeah, it's like, is that really the best use of time and effort? And so I don't know. I guess this is something I'd be real interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm sorry, I know I'm known to digress. So I want to go back to that point you're making. What happens with Gemini? How is Google going to react to Gemini? That is going to be a really big question, because if people are starting to utilize their tool to write more blogs, I've noticed things with customers. I've always said, Google can say all these things are best practices. We do the work with the customers. I see they've talked about for years, domain authority doesn't really matter. Trust me, it matters. They said backlinks aren't really that big of a deal anymore. Yes, they are. It is, so Google will tell you that AI is, in writing from an AI bot, is absolutely a no, 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 no. I am very interested to see, if I'm writing those from Gemini instead of ChatGPT, how it affects my search rankings. But
that would be really interesting to experiment with that. What's your take on, like, why? And it's not just Google. I mean, it's
sure.
YouTube, which I guess is Google now, right? But like, why are they so cryptic with like what they're looking for, to reward? Like, it seems like it's always been, number one, it's always changing, right? The algorithms, you always hear that, right? The algorithms changing. Now the YouTube algorithm is looking for these things. And like, why do they make it so difficult for people to know what they should be doing to get the type of results they want? Hey everyone, we'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode.
They would say that they're trying to tell you best practices, right? And they would say that they give you a little bit of that, but they can't give away their algorithm, because then that's pretty easy for others to be able to steal. And the second they do they have one bad PR move, you're leaving Google and going to some sort of competitor.
Yeah.
And so
that makes sense.
And so if they can continue to, have that veil of secrecy, but still get you what it is you're looking for every time you search, then they're going to do that, because that's going to keep you hooked, right? I know there's some competitors that have come out that are like, oh, we don't follow you around, we don't have any cookies. I don't know. Do you use DuckDuckGo or whatever?
I've messed with it a little bit, but I was messing with it more to see if like if I searched a certain thing on Google that didn't show up, would it show up on DuckDuckGo? Like, was Google suppressing certain phrases or search terms or whatever? I've just, it just I've always kind of wondered that, right? It seems like the algorithm is always changing, and I would expect some change, right? But if it's best practices, like typically best practices don't change every single month. Like the your kind of core best practices are likely to be a little more consistent over time, but
Yeah, but it
we don't
also
have to spend.
their product suite too. So like way back in the day, I want to say like 2014 range, when they were trying to get more people to publish original articles, was at Google Plus and share it there. If you wrote an author, if you like had like an author stamp, you were getting way higher in Google searches on blog
Yeah,
because it was connected to your Google Plus, and they were using that product, and then they killed that whole product, and it doesn't matter. So that's part of the
right.
evolution.
Now they don't care anymore. Yeah, that's probably the root of it, right? Is they've got some agenda based on their suite of products, and they're trying to steer people to adopt one that one product that hasn't got as much adoption as they would want. That's interesting. I really want to come back to the AI thing, but before we do that, I wanted to just kind of point out something from as you were talking and sharing a little bit of like the background and how your company's evolved to the point that it is today. And you kind of called out the difference between just the various marketing and advertising strategies that are out there, right? And you kind of a needs based business where everyone knows what the product or service is because it is something that they need on a regular, like that could be a very different marketing strategy than the business that is maybe not as much of a need and maybe not as top of mind with people. Like this is so important. And I think like, cause what I do, I work with a lot of, really first time business owners or people that are trying to become business owners for the first time. And, my area of focus is franchising. You'd be hard pressed to go talk to a franchisor out there, if you were a prospective franchise owner who's not going to tell you, hey, we've got world-class marketing support.
Mm-hmm.
Like they all say it, right? And some of them do, right? But many of them don't, and many of them are somewhere in between. And I think and I think you and I talked a little bit about this offline. I shouldn't say most, many franchisors, their marketing team is going to be pretty small in terms of actual employees, right? They may have 2 or 3 people, and then they're going to have vendors, right, for different components of the marketing, right? They may have a digital marketing agency. They may have a media buyer, like the franchise we own right now. Believe it or not, we do a lot of print advertising, and it gets great results for us. Right. So we have like a media buyer. And then we have, the people that do our graphic design and things like that. So that's, I would say, the most common setup in majority of franchises out there. Sometimes franchisors will have several vendors, right? So, and they would call them preferred vendors, right? So they may have 2 or 3 digital agencies, and then franchisees kind of have the ability to pick which one they want to work with. And a lot of times you can go, find your own agency if you want. You just need to stick to the brand standards. What I'm driving at though is like in my experience, I've owned 2 different franchise brands, worked with hundreds of other franchises. The marketing is always, there's so much left on the table, in my opinion, for these franchisees when it comes to what they're doing with social, what they're doing with, paid digital advertising, what they're doing to drive more organic traffic, whether that be to their website or, to fill out a form to go to a call center, whatever the kind of call to action is. There's a lot being left on the table. And in my experience, I don't want to offend, any marketers out there. you and I talked about this, and I think we think about it the same way. Like most of these marketing agencies, especially if you look at it through the lens of, all right, you're a marketing agency, you're partnered with all of these franchisees with the same brand, but they're all independent business owners. They don't learn the business that all of these franchisees are in well enough to even understand like what does good look like? Like what does it look like if they're doing their job well? And you talk, I think, about what I would call vanity metrics, right? Like I have heard so many digital marketing companies that we've paid money to and management fees to, get up and show me how many impressions they got to our website or how many clicks that we got, right?
Yeah.
I don't give a damn about that, right? If those impressions and clicks are converting to sales appointments, that's great. Then let's keep ramping up the clicks and the impressions. But if it's not, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything for my revenue. It doesn't do anything for my bottom line in a positive way. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because like it's clear to me that you guys think about this differently, where you are really digging in and understanding your client's business and understanding where the right strategy for one of your clients may be the totally wrong strategy for the next client, because there's nuance in business and not every business is going to market itself the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why we have this funny saying that we talk to with prospects where it's like we get the relationship, like you grow or we go, And so if we're going to
Yeah.
have these like really big long-term relationships with companies, then we always need to be thinking, what is it that's going to actually move the needle for them? And I'll be honest, a lot of times it takes a lot of A/B testing. It takes a lot of understanding that business and
Yes.
that people are afraid to set that expectation, right? They're afraid. And also it's an immense amount of responsibility. I had a guy, I used to work with, great guy, but he used to run ads and he would always say, well, we got everybody to the site, but they just didn't convert. I'm like, you didn't do your job. Our job is everything to conversion, it being the right, and then helping those people after they convert become customers with any of the tools that we have. Like that is what a modern marketing company's got to do to be able to think long term. But that's
Yeah.
an immense amount of responsibility, right? Like I
Yeah.
have customers where it's much easier to run campaigns, get the leads, and we can all high five because they're great customers. They have a great product. People in their industry have heard of them before, and we're able to create the right messaging that gets people to go, yeah, I want to know more.
Yeah.
Others can be a little bit tougher. Maybe they're just starting up and maybe they haven't built any sort of brand reputation. And so, regardless of all these different businesses, I always try and kind of funnel it through a very specific framework, right? Which is, how are we going to attract a prospect? How do we convert that prospect into an opportunity? How do we close that opportunity in a customer? And how do we delight that customer? So
Yeah.
speaking on the franchise level, it's so different, right? The franchisor is trying to attract a potential franchisee. So they're going to get them to come in, they're going to sign a bunch of NDAs and they're going to start showing the secret sauce. And then they're going to try and make them feel that when you buy into this franchise, you are going to make a lot of money and your life and your family is going to change. And they're going to go through a sales process that hopefully can convince that prospect to do that. And then they close them. And then they've got to be able to give them all the tools to succeed so they delight the hell out of that customer and actually fulfill that promise. Now, on the franchisee side, they have now bought a business and they've got a bunch of tools, right? But a lot of times they're working like direct to a customer. So there's obviously some B2B franchises, but a lot of times it's direct to the consumer. And so let's say you're a brick and mortar restaurant, right? Let's just say you've bought a new franchise, a new pizza franchise that maybe not a lot of people have heard of. So how do you attract a prospect? Well, hopefully you're on a good corner and you've got some good signage. You might need to, putting billboards up. So that's
Get one of those guys dancing and twirling the sign out front.
Yeah, I love that guy.
It
Um,
always gets my attention.
right?
I always stop and look.
And then you get that phone number and the contact information, and then somebody calls, right? And so, okay, so we've attracted them. Now, how are we going to convert them to a customer? Hey, how's it going? I know you guys are in town. I heard you guys are new in town. And then somebody on the phone literally is in charge of hopefully converting them to come in and
Yeah.
purchase a pizza. And then there's some like rewards program or something that goes along. So regardless of B2B, direct to consumer, franchisor, franchisee, you're always going through that framework, right? You're
Yeah.
always having to
Yeah.
attract, convert, close, delight. And if you know what you're doing at every single one of those stages, that's when you're setting yourself up for success. But to your point, it's so different for every single business.
It's so different. So that is that your marketing to sales framework that you just kind of walked us through? Is that what you refer to as the M2S framework?
It's the meat of it. It's kind of the map. We do a little bit of foundational work ahead of time so we know who that target audience is, the metrics that
Yeah.
matter. So we're not
Yeah.
relying on any vanity metrics,
Yes.
as well as just any sort of like comms and vision gaps that might exist. But once we have that foundation, yes, then we want to go take those customer segments through that framework, get really detail oriented. And what we find when we create that map is there's always some sort of obstacle. Like, oh, that sounds great. We probably need to build a landing page for that. Oh, I love that, but we have to adopt this technology, right? And there's these gaps of marketing the way you want to and the way that you can, right? And it's typically tech, content, resources, processes. And so there's just
so then you guys come in and fill in those gaps too, right? Hey, you need a landing page, we can set it up. You need to implement, this piece of technology to make everything flow. We'll get it set up, connected, integrated.
Absolutely. So it is. It's like, the foundation, building the framework, implementing it, and then anywhere where they need that support, right? Because some people have different marketing functions in house, and a lot of times it works better in certain ways. So I'll give you an example. We work with a franchise, a kids gym franchise that when we started with them, they had 5 locations. They now have, I think, over 130 across the world. And at some point, there was an inflection point where there was just so much going on with their franchisees that they needed their marketing support to be in house because it was so constant, and it wasn't something an outsourced agency could do. And we then shift all of our focus on the franchise and continuing to bring more franchisees into the funnel. And that seemed like more of a natural evolution, right? You kind of grow out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the really big franchisors out there, they're going to have really big, really established. They're going to have way more robust in-house marketing departments. They're still probably, in most cases using a variety of, third-party vendors to help, with pieces of their overall marketing strategy. Like I'm sure McDonald's works with, a creative agency and things like that, but it is kind of the natural evolution, right? As the brand grows and becomes more mature. But man, it's refreshing, the way that you guys look at it. Just the fact that you're looking all the way through to the sales part of it, right, with your clients. Because I mean, in my experience, most of these marketing companies don't, and they can't even wrap their head around. I'm probably sound way too harsh on this topic, but
No, trust me. I always joke that we're in an industry with a lot of bad ex-boyfriends. Like
that's a good way to put it.
I don't know why. I think a lot of people want to be better at this than they actually are. I think there's a lot of good intentions and bad execution. But I mean, and I mean, people don't come up with like, hey, like check out all these impressions out of nowhere, right? It's not like they're like, hey, it's like, oh, I worked at a PR company and that's what we did, and no reason.
Yeah. So I think the approach that you guys are taking makes a lot of sense. Can you give me some examples of, and we've already touched on this a little bit, but I think it'd be good for the audience to to kind of maybe hear some examples to wrap their head around this. But when we talk about like, one marketing strategy working really well for one company, but not as much for the next, like, can you give us some examples from clients that you've worked with? You don't have to, use any names or anything like that, where, one strategy worked well, but the same strategy would not have worked as well for another of your clients. Hey everyone, we'll be right back to the episode, but one quick note, success doesn't happen in a vacuum. So if you'd like to learn more, you want to go deeper and interact with like-minded people, I'd love to have you join the free Path to Freedom Facebook group. You can join by going to pathtofreedom.com/group and become a part of the Path to Freedom community. All right, back to the episode.
Okay, great. I'll give you an example of referrals from the same community. There's a group of business guys up in, I think it's like Rockford County is the name of it, outside of New York City, that we've been able to help. And one of their businesses is ADA therapy for children on the spectrum. And they're in a specific state. And we are able to run a lot of geo-targeted ads to specific landing pages and kind of their bigger metro markets. And we're able to get a lot of leads coming into the point where they're having trouble keeping up with all of them from a sales perspective.
That is a good problem to have.
Yeah. So one of the people on there, one of the people who is part of that conglomerate has another business, and his business is helping. He's kind of like redefined how to staff nursing homes. And it's not like a traditional nurse staffing agency, because those have terrible connotation. They're way too expensive. And he's figured out this
headaches if you own it too.
Yeah. And he's figured out this way to create a kind of a recruiting company that is really good at getting the right talent and saving his customers so much money. But they're all used to, when they're in a jam, going to these nurse staffing agencies. And so his Google advertising is not as isn't getting as much traction, because what he's having to, what he's realizing is like, people are searching for nurse staffing agency. And even if we say nurse staffing agency alternative, they're in a jam and they're going to go with what they know. Right.
Yeah.
So
there's too much educating that needs to be done for that type of paid advertising to work for them.
And this is where we're pivoting a lot of what we're doing. They've got such amazing videos about just the impact that they've had on the nursing homes that they've worked with. So we're shifting a little bit that way. We're putting more advertisements towards demographics. So really looking at people who are in charge of the, staffing, nursing homes. And the other thing too that we've come to realize is like there's so much persona work that you have to do. So like buyer personas are like different types of people who would purchase your product. And for them, like they become a CEO's and a CFO's best friend, but an HR team's nightmare, because they're about to show the CFO and the CEO how much money they're going to be able to save them by going with them. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's, so there's all sorts of these different challenges, but you just have to understand the variables. I think the other thing is like, if you really understand your target market and what it is they want and what their hesitations are, right? I always talk about customer hesitations. Like, why would they not go with you? Okay?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, hey, it's just too expensive. Well, guess what? That means they're not your customer.
They're not the right person for you to be trying to get in front of.
So, if it is going to be a little expensive, then you need to be making sure you promote value, right? Somebody comes to your website landing page, you need to showcase all of your value so that they go, wow, I get all of that for just this price.
Yep. And your buyer's persona should be, one of someone that's more concerned with quality than savings, right?
Absolutely. If you've got the kind of company that can race to the bottom, God bless you. And if you're the lowest price, awesome, great. Most of us aren't in that situation. So we have to provide immense amount of value, and we have to look at things as an investment as opposed to like, a cost. And
100%.
And we've got to be able to provide that return, right?
I'm glad you said that, because that's, I used to sell franchises for a few different brands, and the brands that I worked for, and even the franchises that my wife and I own and have owned, have all been kind of in the home service, home improvement category, right? So, we're talking businesses that don't have any sort of a retail storefront, right? No billboard, no signage, right? So, an effective outbound marketing and advertising strategy is critical, especially in the beginning as you're trying to, get the business established in your local market. So most franchises with any sort of a service-based business, they are going to have marketing spend minimums in place for franchisees, right? Where they are essentially required to spend at least a certain amount of money per month towards marketing and advertising. Most franchisors don't go as far as to tell you exactly how you have to spend that money. You have autonomy as the business owner to, figure out what the right mix is for you. Now, most new franchisees are likely to lean pretty heavily on the franchisor for advice and suggestions as to, what's the best marketing mix for me as a brand new franchisee. And then over time, you get results, you get more data, you're able to, make more informed decisions with that. But that's something I used to, because to me, I guess it kind of just clicked and made sense. Like, yeah, if you're spending marketing dollars, that's an investment, because at some point you should be able to start tracking an ROI, back to those marketing dollars. But that blew a lot of people's minds, I found, when I was having to walk them through like why we have these marketing minimums. Because it would scare a lot of people, right? They're like, wait, you mean I'm obligated to spend? And I would start telling them, I'm like, look, if you're just average in this business and you're only spending the minimums, like you're not making smart decisions, because, here's some data points you can look and see, like the typical ROI, that our franchisees with, an average close rate and some of these other things that are going to determine the ROI, but not necessarily a direct result of how effective the marketing and advertising is. Like, why would you not invest more if you can pretty confidently assume you're going to get at least a certain ROI on it, and so anyways, I just think it's important, if you're thinking about business ownership, you got to look at your marketing budget as an investment. It's certainly not a sunk cost on your P&L.
Absolutely. But I think why that's so scary to so many people is because, I'm just kind of even starting to think at the local level based off what you were talking about. There's such like measuring ROI is really tough, right? Like, I was thinking about a franchise that I called a couple of years ago just because I saw a sign and I like the name of that company, Mosquito Joe. It's like I
know them.
I'm calling
Mosquito. They're part of Neighborly. They got bought by Neighborly, just like Shelf Genie, our brand, did.
And I think they try their best, but I think mosquitoes still always win where I live. Not their fault.
Yeah, it's I mean, they're going to have plenty of repeat business, that's for sure. But they always come back.
But to that point, okay, so I spent a lot of money to put a lot of signs up. I put them in like yards, like real estate agents do on the weekends, and we got some calls. So maybe we can measure that a little bit. I don't know how many times I drove by that sign before I called. Can't tell you that.
Right.
But then, even if you look something that's even like more clear cut, like digitally, what if I want to advertise with Yelp? Now, Wes, do I have permission to go on a rant for a minute about how bad Yelp's advertising platform is?
Please, because I've had some experience with that myself and fall into the same boat.
So really good advertising networks like Meta, which owns Facebook, Instagram, as well as Google, what they let you do is they let you go in and out at your leisure when it makes sense. And all of their metrics are incredibly transparent. Anytime I've ever talked to a Yelp representative on behalf of a client, I've said, here's what we want. We want to see all of our statistics from, let's say, March 2024. I want to see everybody who came in, and I want to see who came, all your conversion points, and I want to use that as a baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 1 month, the month of July coming up. I will pay you X amount of dollars. On July 31st, I'd like you to take all of those numbers, and I'd like to see how we did in July when I gave you all of that money versus how we did in March when I did not give you money and everything was organic. And somehow, the most easy, obvious thing they could ever do would be like, well, that's great, because then we show you how valuable our advertising platform is.
Right.
They won't let
It's
you
a
do that.
sales tool at that point
They
for
won't
them.
let you do it. They all their reps. I mean, I think I got them to like a 60-day one time, and this was years ago. I've stopped trying to mess around with with Yelp. And maybe they've improved it. If they have, God bless you, Yelp. I'm sorry, but I don't think it's the case.
And if not, maybe this will light a fire under their ass a little bit. But
and I think the other thing is like I've heard from some select company. I actually have a buddy who is a lawyer in the intellectual property space. He says Yelp advertising works really well for him, and I'm like, wow.
yeah, it's one of those things that, kind of like we've talked about. I think, different business, like different platforms, different, advertising vehicles are going to work better for some businesses. Like, as an example, to your point about like some businesses are not as good for search advertising. Our Shelf Genie business is not great. Like, we don't really spend any money on pay-per-click, right? Because, it's custom pull-out shelving. It's pretty niche. It's high-end, but some people call them glide-out shelving. Some people call them, sliding shelves. Some people call them, cabinet organizers. Like, most people know, if they have an issue with storage in their pantry or their cabinets, but they don't necessarily know what they need to fix it. Luckily for us, it's a very visual product. It's very aesthetic. So when people see it, it clicks. They're like, yes, that's what I need. All right. And also, you made this point earlier, you need to have a good understanding of your buying personas or your target demographics, right? Because Shelf Genie's a franchise that's been around since 2008. We have a very good understanding of who our target demographics are, right? So we know at this point what's the best way to put our ads in front of the people that are most likely to see it, and then have a positive response. And also, because this ties into what we talked about earlier, where some people may see it and be like, yeah, that makes sense, but I would never spend that much money on it. Like, our average job is, $6,000. We do $20,000+ jobs on a pretty regular basis. So it's not for everybody. So, having a good understanding of who that target demographic is very important. But even within that, right? So, paid social works pretty well for us. Pay-per-click, not so much, just because the search volume is not there for the terms that make sense for us. Print advertising has been our most steady. We spend, for 6 years now, we've spent like $1,500 a month on Valpak, and we know we're going to get our 6 to 7 sales appointments a month from Valpak. It's not necessarily our best, but it's the most consistent over 6 years.
How do you measure that?
Unique phone numbers is one way. It's not perfect, and I wanted to bring this up too. And then the Valpak has a certain coupon code on it that only applies to that Valpak. So if they fill out a form online, if they talk to someone at the call center, they have to reference the code, right? Which gets them a discount. So most people do, but that's another way that we tie back to it. So I want to make one point, and then I want to talk about attribution, because that's important too, that I think a lot of people, in my opinion, don't think about the right way. And I'm curious if you would think about it the same way as me. But before we go to attribution, even within Shelf Genie, right, we've got, I would say, Shelf Genie, compared to a lot of the franchises that I've worked with, does a pretty good job in terms of, having a pretty clear, marketing and advertising strategy for franchisees, right? You can kind of put it into 3 buckets. You've got digital, you've got print, and then you've got what I would call your ground game, right? So going out and exhibiting at local home shows and trade fairs and just getting out, because again, it's a very aesthetically pleasing product, and when people see it, they get it, and they're interested. Our marketing mix in coastal North and South Carolina that works well for us is not necessarily going to be the same marketing mix that works well for the guy down in Naples, Florida, and West Palm Beach, who's a really good friend of ours. Digitally, I think it's a little more, consistent across the entire system in the country. But like with print, for example, Valpak's been the best for us. We've tried Money Mailer, we've tried a few of these other, print ad companies that are out there. Valpak's always been the best. I know other franchisees that have never gotten good results from Valpak, but one of the other, print options gets them similar results to what Valpak gets for us. So, I think it's one of those things. There's no silver bullet. It's always going to change. You should always be pivoting, doing some A/B testing, trying to, tweak it and just, keep trying to get better results. So anyways, I wanted to share that example because that I think is a good example of where like a lot of companies, digital strategies probably built around pay-per-click, for a business like Shelf Genie, pay-per-click is a total waste of money.
One of the questions that I always ask when I'm trying to look through that buyer persona is, how do people currently buy products or services like this in your area, right? Like for this demo that you want so badly, where do they find people like you? And in that conversation, that's when, things like, I know a lot of people who subscribe to Valpak and, use coupons from there all the time. Okay, well, that's at least an avenue we should test, right? Going back to what you were saying about A/B testing. I have this phrase, I say, like, optimization is eternal. Like there's not like a magic button, you hit it and then you get to ride the wave forever. If there was, we'd all and so you're always having to optimize along the way. But I think it is great once you are able to understand where where you can get certain leads from, and to your best that you can scale that, right? And I think, to your point, it is going to be different for everybody and every avenue. I mean, I don't know how you can scale Valpak. I mean, do you have a bigger ad?
No, there's some that do. There's one called the Home Mag that's like specifically for home improvement companies, and you can pay more to be on the cover. You can pay more to have a full page ad or whatever. But other than that, I mean, especially in a franchise, right, where you have a territory, right, that you own, you wouldn't really want to spend marketing dollars outside of your territory. You can't scale it, and that's where like Valpak's not been like necessarily our best dollar for dollar ROI. We've done like little vendor fairs where we paid $50 to be there and generated $40,000 in revenue off of 4 appointments that came from it, or 5 appointments that came from it. Valpak's just been the most consistent in terms of, we know we're going to spend this much and we're going to, get somewhere in this range of appointments. That being said, we have found that every now and then we need to change up the artwork. We need to change up the copy a little bit. And we also will just pull out for a month or two and then jump back in, just so it doesn't get too stale. And that seems, because you'll see it tip down a little bit, and then my wife will just pull out of it for the next month, maybe 2 months, and then we go back in and it kind of goes back up. So it's what was your phrase? Optimization is eternal.
Eternal. Yep.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on attribution? Like, I assume this is an area that you see a lot of companies not doing a great job. We'll get right back to the episode in just a minute, but if you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you. answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode.
I mean, I think with anything, it comes down to expectation setting, right? And, we work with a lot of sales teams. So companies that have sales and marketing teams, and everybody wants attribution for everything, right? And to your point, sometimes you can make it really clear. If I got a coupon that's only in Valpak and somebody's calling about that, I know where they're coming from. If they convert on a site and I'm using a platform like HubSpot and I can see exactly what their journey was, okay, I know they're coming from search or from a paid campaign. Great. Okay.
Yeah. You can pixels. I don't really know what the hell I'm talking about, but you can put pixels places and that can kind of follow them around to show you their journey a little bit, is my understanding of that.
But you don't always know if, let's say you deliver the absolute best experience to one of your customers and, somebody calls and you forget to ask that really important question. Oh, how did you hear about us? And maybe the way they heard about them was because one of your past customers was really excited in a Nextdoor or Facebook group talking about how, somebody goes, does anyone know any shelving companies? Oh my gosh, Wes and his family at Shelf Genie are the best, right? If you forget to ask that question, then maybe you don't know, right? But I think going back to that delighting a customer, why do we delight the customer and why do we want to do such a good job? Because that framework isn't just like, linear, it's circular, right? You delight the heck out of a customer and then, people are going to start talking about it, right? You see a movie you really like, you tell everybody about it. You work with a business you really like, you're going to tell everybody about it, right? So that's why you deliver that. But going back to what, your point on attribution, like, I mean, at some point you have to understand that there is going to be a gap in that marketing. Marketing is an art and a science, and you need to figure out and understand the science as best you can. And then you're going to have to A/B test the hell out of the art to see where the science gives you the numbers that you want. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially in this day and age, people are shifting a lot more to performance marketing as opposed to brand marketing, right? I think God bless branding agencies for talking about how you got to just get your brand out there, and here's the impressions, and it doesn't matter how many people convert. God bless them. They've made some good money over the years. If you can do it, great. If you can sleep at night that way, go enjoy your brand agency. Sorry.
No, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you on that.
For us, we've got to be able to prove our bottom line, and we've got to help our customers, hit theirs. And so, the best thing that you can do is kind of understand the overall goals, right? Okay, revenue is this month. I've told you I want 3 months to A/B test, but at the end of the third month, you want to be up 20%. So I know what that number is, right? And so now I can take all of my tools, everything in the arsenal, and I'm going to run like hell to get that 20%.
I'm going to start trying and see what works, and then you dial it in, right?
I'm going to put everything I can into being able to to understand, okay, well, this phone number only goes in this print ad. I'm going to put, I'm going to make sure that I can track anybody who comes from search, audit, all that stuff. But at some point, if somebody calls and they go, I don't even remember where I heard about you. Somebody was talking.
It's going to happen. I mean, that's what we have come to learn in like our personal experience with our businesses is that, yes, you want to see your attribution as clear as you can, but you can't expect perfection, and it's just more nuanced than that. Like we've seen, I mean, I couldn't tell you what the exact number is, but for many of our clients that we run sales appointments with, it took multiple touch points of them seeing us before they took an action, right? So yeah, it may have been getting that Valpak coupon, right? That was the final nudge for them to pick up the phone and call. But we have people all the time. They're like, hey, we saw you at the home show last fall, right? I saw something on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and then the Valpak showed up. So like our system, the processes that we've created are going to attribute that lead to Valpak. But if that was kind of their journey, does that lead really get attributed to Valpak? So what we've learned is like, look, we want to have as good as systems in place as we can to see as best as we can the attribution. But what we're really looking at is the overall picture. How much have we invested in marketing and advertising, and what is our total ROI? And if we can stay within a certain range, we're probably not making any big major adjustments. And I'll give you a real quick example. I know we're kind of going long here, but I think this is hopefully really valuable stuff for the listeners. If so one of our kind of friends and mentors, who was a long time Shelf Genie franchisee, this guy's owned 6 or 7 other businesses, both franchise and non-franchise businesses over the years. He got into Shelf Genie very early, and it's not anymore, but at one point in time, newspaper ads were actually pretty effective for Shelf Genie, because our target demographic is it kind of skews to that 55 plus age group. So he had kind of gotten accustomed to spending a certain amount of money in the newspaper, and based on the reporting systems that we had, seeing a certain ROI on that spend. And then all of a sudden, over a couple of months, that ROI just dropped off the table, right? So naturally, he's like, well, screw this. I'm spending 10 grand a month in the newspaper. Like, I'm just going to move that money somewhere else, or I'm just going to put 10 grand in my pocket, or maybe I'll, reinvest 5 of it somewhere else and put 5 grand in my pocket. And then when he did that a month later, his total number of appointments fell off the cliff. Right. And so what he realized was that something had changed, where, because the newspaper was just tracked by a unique phone number. Right. That's how they attributed a lead to the newspaper ad, was a unique phone number. And so I imagine, kind of what happened was, as websites became more and more prevalent, and people in that 55 plus demographic got more comfortable searching things on the computer.
My grandma's on Facebook. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. They're pretty savvy these days with it. But they would see the ad and they'd be like, oh, that looks interesting. Let me go to the website and learn some more. Whereas before, they would just see the ad and call. Right. And so anyways, it was a good lesson for us, because he shared this with, a lot of us newer franchisees at the time. Like, don't make rash decisions based on, these reports that we have that are good, but not perfect. You've got to kind of look at the bigger picture. So anyways, that I think probably applies, to most small businesses. I would think that, you want to look as best you can at each individual, marketing vehicle, but overall it's that, what are you investing and what are you getting from that investment? And if you're happy with that, there's small tweaks you can make, but you probably don't need to massively change anything.
And every business is different, but you also have to understand the difference between, the sample size needed to understand what's a blip and what's a trend. Because
good point.
You don't want to make rash decisions, but you also don't want to keep putting money into something that's not working. And as times and platforms change.
Right. Because what's to say your ROI doesn't go up if you do make some adjustments in an area where it's just not producing anything for you. So I think the takeaway should be hire someone like Austin, because this marketing shit is not very straightforward. And, if you're a business owner, it's not the best use of your time, getting into the weeds. You want to have good data, right? That's going to allow you to make good data, good information. That's going to allow you to make good decisions on, how you're investing your marketing dollars. And then the other thing that I don't think gets talked enough about when we talk about marketing is, good marketing's only half of the battle, right? Like, you could have the best marketing agency in the world that gets you the highest quality appointments or opportunities or leads, or, however your business looks at it, in a very cost effective manner. But if your sales process is broken, or your sales, people are not able to capitalize on those leads or opportunities and actually convert them to revenue, you can still lose money, right? With, your marketing dollars. So you got to make sure that part of it's tight as well, if you really want the results.
Absolutely. I couldn't said it better myself.
Can I ask you? I know I've kept you for a while now, but can I ask you one more thing?
I can talk all day. That's just who I am.
All right, then I have two more questions that I want to ask you about. The first one I think may be kind of quick, right? And probably a loaded question at that too, but maybe we'll come up with a clickbaity title, based on your response, and get some more views this way. But
Okay.
in your opinion, is there a particular platform that is being underutilized by companies, where there's just, massive opportunity? You hear Gary Vee talk about this type of stuff all the time, right? And he's like all over the place. Like one day it's TikTok, one day it's Instagram, one day it's LinkedIn. But like, is there, and like I said, probably a loaded, impossible question to answer, but is there, like, for me in my consulting business, I've been focusing way more on YouTube for the last year or so, trying to put out more high quality video content on YouTube. Is there something you think a lot of companies are missing or not doing enough of, that is like low hanging fruit?
Wow. All right. From a universal perspective, I'd say the answer, I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
Universal, but I give you a couple of use cases.
Yeah.
One, I think, so if you want to market through thought leadership, which it sounds like you're trying to do on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say that you got to take the leap of I'm too old, I don't really want to do this, and sign up for TikTok as well. You're going to have to talk to that generation, and that generation's moms also on TikTok now, because they want to know what's going on. They want to know the dances too.
Yeah, they do.
So I would say, like, if you want to be that person, if you want to be super thought leadership, like, that is an area that you should do on top of YouTube. But I would say more in general, I would constantly be talking to your target audience and understanding where they go to make buying decisions for ancillary services or products, right? You go there? Oh, how did you hear about them? And then see where you can insert yourself. So sometimes, and in an organic way, if they're like, oh, it's a mom's group, and you're like and it's you, Wes, don't go join a mom's group and be like, hey, how's it going? Check out my shelves, man.
Yeah. Or anyone want to buy a franchise? What's up, ladies?
But I will say, go where they are and provide value that makes their life better, that does not promote your product whatsoever.
I'll give you a really good example of exactly what you're saying. This is another guy that does the same type of franchise consulting that I do, and I'm in a network of consultants. We do 2 big conferences a year, and he was actually on a panel at the conference back in January, and it's exactly what you said. Like, you can't. It's got to be organic and kind of genuine for this to work. But he's you and I were talking about football before we started recording. He's a huge Tennessee football fan, right? Like, huge Tennessee fan, and so he's in all these forums, I guess, for people that are specifically UT fans, or people that are just huge college football fans. And most of them you pay a monthly membership fee to be a part of, right? But he's in there, he's active, right? And he's not leading with his business goals, which are to get in front of people that may be interested in buying or investing in businesses. He's there because he's passionate. He enjoys the topics, the conversations, and things like that. But then through these forums, many of them do have advertising opportunities, right? Or you're just developing, relationships with people. And, what do you naturally do? Hey, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? And when it comes up, anyways, I think he ended up, I may get this wrong, but in 2023, I think he ended up connecting with 4 or 5 people through these football forums that ended up buying a franchise, which is, compared to what, I imagine that would have cost him, massive ROI. And he was doing something that he would have been doing anyways.
Yeah. Well, maybe you answered your question better than I could. Join, your local football forum. No, again, to that point, like, if you know where your target audience is and you can provide them value, you're going to build trust. And if you build that trust through talking about 4 or 5-star recruits all the time, and then he goes, "Oh, hey, Vols fan 21, is it true that you help people with franchises?" "Oh, yeah. We can talk about that offline. Like, we don't need to talk about that here."
That's how it goes. He was like, look, and he made this point when he's kind of talking. He's like, I'm not saying like everyone, like if you don't really care about college football, like do not go get in a college football forum, try to act like you know what you're talking about. Or he's like, they will kick you out of that group or harass you so bad because they can tell. And I think they're like, the lesson there is, because I think this is becoming more and more critical, in this day and age, as there's so much content out there. There's ads everywhere you look, everywhere you listen. Everyone's trying to sell everyone something. I think the more genuine you can be, and the less salesy you are, especially if if you're really offering something of value, like that's more important than ever, in my opinion. I think people are just getting numb to, traditional advertising, me trying to kind of force my product down your throat. I think you've got to, somehow or another create more of a, I don't know, more trust, I guess. You got to be genuine and
really connect with them.
Yeah. All right. Last thing I want to ask you about, and go.
No, I said last one. I was just putting the one.
Last one. All right. I've probably already exceeded my quota today, but you can just invoice me for the extra time. AI. We touched on this earlier, right? Kind of, joked a little bit about, oh, what, you're going to, use ChatGPT to crank out 100 blog articles a month now. Like, where do you see AI actually having big impact as it pertains to businesses marketing themselves? Like, where do you see potential for there to really be? Because I'm kind of of the same opinion, right? Like ChatGPT, it's cool, right? But like, what are you going to do with 100 blog articles a month? Like, that's probably too many blog articles. No one's going to read all that. Where is there opportunity for real disruption?
I think a lot of it, again, it always comes back to that target audience, and you're going to figure out how much people want AI in their lives, right? So I'd see one of the big things right now is, creating videos, AI videos, right? And there's something to me with creative that a lot of, and some creative realms, like AI is very off-putting. Like a person who's obviously a fake person, like, and anything is pretty off-putting. But I've also seen some images that you can make in Midjourney that are a lot cooler than stock images.
Dude, yeah. Some of it, and it's so, it's almost impossible to tell it's AI. It's like, it's getting to that point.
But we're gonna realize how much of this we want automated. So we use a tool called Fireflies. It follows me around and goes in all my meetings. It summarizes my meetings. It takes out action items, and it's mostly accurate. None of my clients seem to mind except one, and his wife is an employment attorney, and he says, I don't want any on the employer side. He's like, I don't want anything I'm saying being recorded ever. And I think that's a good example of, like, if we all sat down and thought about it, and we talked to our employment attorneys, they'd be like, or even just our business attorneys, be like, yeah, don't have a tool that's transcribing everything you're saying, especially that's accessible to everyone. Like anything you say will be held against you. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah. I
this,
mean, it could help you too, right? Because like, look, in my line of work, and if you're selling franchises, I'm more of a broker or an advisor. But if you're selling franchises, like there's regulations at the FTC level, right? Like you can't make earnings claims to someone. I couldn't say, Austin, if you buy this franchise, you're going to make 250 grand in your first year, because I don't know that, right? I may know that the potential is there because other people have done that with that franchise, but I have no idea if you're going to execute, right? Or if you're going to execute as well as some of these other folks. So like, it could potentially work in your favor, right? If someone came back and said, well, look, I bought this franchise because Wes told me this and I believed Wes. And if I had transcript of me, in fact, saying the opposite of that, maybe that helps. I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see like how, like where people start drawing lines and saying, this is
yeah.
not okay.
But I think I just want to kind of finish by showing you the lens where it does work. Okay.
Yeah,
Because
please.
what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the right message to the right person at the right time. Right. So any tool that helps us do that better, faster, that we want to invest in. So there's a new tool that we've been using called Reloom. And Reloom, I can literally write a one sentence about a company, and before I know it, they have a sitemap and a wireframe put together with AI text. And now I'm not going and then and turning that wireframe as is off the one sentence AI conversion into a designed website. What I am doing is I have it now all laid out. And so I'm able to edit so much faster. And when I do edit, and I edit the sections and I put the copy the way I want, and then I export it to Figma. And then I do that, and my designer can start designing right then and there. And we can do
Yeah.
that
So it
process.
saves a ton of time. It's not doing it all for you, and it's not removing that human touch that is, okay, this, I'm okay with this as a final product, but it's just doing a lot of the legwork for you.
So it just helps you get it can help you get a website up much faster than ever before. So especially if you don't have like anything too crazy, you can then take that Figma file and then export it into Webflow and you can literally have a one-page website done in a day, and something that would have taken you weeks, months before. So that's where anytime we're evaluating an AI tool, is it helping us get to, is it really helping the customer? Is it helping us work faster and better? And, is it going to authentically, or I should say authentically, but is it going to help us connect with a customer and get that right message to them at the right time?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good lens to look at it through, because I mean, AI is turned into such a buzzword, these days, right? Everyone's throwing it around, and I mean, understandably so. But like, I go to these conferences, and you know, 200 franchise brands, I get to like hear a pitch from, over the course of a week or whatever, and not a single one of them is not finding a way to, squeeze AI into their, 3-minute overview or pitch or whatever. I mean, it's everywhere. And I think it's probably one of those things, a lot of small business owners, unless they have good partnerships, or good guidance, it's just kind of overwhelming and confusing. Like they're probably just like, you know what? Forget about AI. Like I don't understand it. There's too much I'm just not even going there.
And it's moving fast. And so it's
It's
really hard.
moving so fast. Yeah. Man, you've been so generous with your time, and thoroughly enjoyed this. And I have no doubt that anyone who listens is going to get a ton of value. I mean, I talk to so many people that are contemplating business ownership for the first time, and the marketing and advertising piece is usually a big concern for a lot of these folks, because if they don't have a marketing background, then especially now with, like we just talked about, AI and how fast it's changing, and social media, like most people are like, I want to own a business, but I'm terrified of knowing how to market and who to market it to, and they just, a lot of times they freeze because it's just so overwhelming. So it's good to know that there's companies like yours out there with, in my opinion, a very refreshing approach to this, which is, hey, we understand that all of our customers' goal is to make money, and we understand that the right marketing strategy is not a one size fits all approach, and we need to really dig in, understand, what results our clients looking for, and then, tailor a strategy based on that. Luckily for you, most other marketing companies are not doing that, but more marketing companies should. So where can people find you? You do a podcast as well, I believe.
Yeah. I just started it. It's called Scaling Through Structure. It's currently
Oh, I
on
love that. That's a
our
good name.
website. Yeah, I've I have a massive case of ADHD, and so like everything in my life has to be super structured, or I just go off in the woods and think forever.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking for new systems and tools, and that's all connected right now through our website, www.atakinteractive.com. We'll flesh it out once it's as big as yours here, but just getting started.
I think
And
only my mom listens to this. I
I'm a,
probably should have told you that before you spent an hour and a half with me today, but it's like my mom and a random person in Russia that are the two listeners to this.
okay. Well, Boris, thank you for listening. If you're still here, I'm glad you made it.
That's great.
Uh,
We'll
Thanks.
put the website link in the show notes, and any social media handles that you want us to. But I mean it when I say it. Like, you guys, in my opinion, you're doing this the right way, and you're in an industry where, I forget exactly how you put it, but it was great. Full of a lot of bad ex-boyfriends.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I think there's, most of them maybe are well intentioned, but I also think there's companies out there that they know they're not going to get good results. They don't care. They just have kind of a churn and burn model, and anyways, it's good to see people with the philosophy and the approach that you do, which is, hey, we're partnering with our clients to help them grow their business and make more money, not just take money from them. So keep doing what you're doing, man. I really have a lot of respect for it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Wes. I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man, it was my pleasure.